Listen to the hot dog.
Hello and welcome to This Date in History, aka TDH, your daily source of interesting and important events I consider enough to be worth sharing. Of course, there are far more events that have happened, and I encourage you to seek those out as well, for everything and everyone matters. It is all connected. Today is Tuesday, aka Tears Day, June 29th, 2021. The music you are hearing in the background is California by Koza. A link to that, as well as any other sources of videos and articles, are in the video description. Anyway, on with the show! In 1194, after getting crowned King of Norway, Sverre was excommunicated by the Catholic Church and a civil war broke out. Moving on up to 1613, after having been built by the Lord Chamberlain's men, the acting troupe in which William Shakespeare belonged for most of his career, the Globe Theatre in London, burnt down. The fire started while in active performance. The play All Is True was underway and was caused by the very same play. After the first act, cannons were fired. However, nobody noticed a piece of shrapnel landing on the thatched roof. And although the house was packed, there were no reported deaths. In 1864, becoming Canada's worst railway disaster, around 100 people were killed when their train failed to stop for an open drawbridge, flying off the tracks and plunging into the Riviere Recalou near St. Helier in Quebec. In 1889, Hyde Park, along with multiple other townships in Illinois, voted to be annexed by Chicago. This merger formed the largest city in area within the United States, and at the time the second largest in population. Before this, Chicago was actually small, covering an area slightly over 10 square miles, and this merger not only bolstered that number by 125, but added 225,000 to its populace. Moving on up to 1927, a U.S. Army Air Corps Fokker tri-motor named the Bird of Paradise completed the first trans-Pacific flight after having flown for 25 hours and 50 minutes. Having started in Oakland, California, and touching down in Hawaii, Lieutenant Lester J. Maitland and Lieutenant Albert F. Hegenberger were welcomed at Wheeler Field, crossing off yet another milestone in aviation history. In 1956, U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the Federal Highway Act of 1956, officially creating the United States Internet Highway System. With odd numbers going north and south and even numbers being west and east, there is a saying I heard of which I wish to convey. America does not have highways because it is great. The United States is where it's at because of the highway system. And for some reason we have an interstate on Hawaii. Moving forward a couple decades, in 1974, with President of Argentina Juan Perón terminally ill, his wife, Vice President Isabel Perón, assumed powers and duties. She would lead the country poorly, doing many shady things and back-alley deals, eventually leading to her exile and eventual arrest in Spain. In 1995, Space Shuttle Atlantis, while performing STS Mission 71, docked with the Russian space station MIR for the first time. This structure operated in low Earth orbit from 1986 to 2001 and was completed in 1996, and also held the record for longest continuous human presence in space, 3,644 days, until it was surpassed on October 23, 2010 by the ISS. Also in 1995, the Sampoong department store collapsed, causing the deaths of over 500 and injuring over 1,000 more in the Seocho district of Seoul, South Korea. The building was constructed as part of a larger project in preparation for the 1988 Summer Olympics and thus was built fast and cheap. Atop that, there were countless warning signs of imminent catastrophic failure, yet essentially nothing was done in the concerns of safety. Moving up to the next decade, in 2002, North Korea, using the ignorant excuse, took advantage of a South Korean War Games drill and fired upon one of their vessels, causing the deaths of 6 South Korean sailors. Munitions were exchanged and the Norks lost one of their own ships. This brief event had no political impact due to the two countries still, to this day, are still at active war and are only observing a ceasefire. And in 2014, the Islamic State of Iraq, better known as ISIS, and their Levant self-declared its caliphate in northern Iraq and Syria. Not much more really needs to be said about them. It's rather a recent thing in history, still fresh in the minds of the masses. Births: Joseph Russell, 1793, George Washington Goethals, 1858, Alan Blumlein, 1903, Ralph Burns, 1922, Gary Busey, 1944, Brett McKenzie, 1976. Deaths: Montezuma II, 1520. And that concludes today's episode. Once again, I encourage you to invest more time in history. You never know what may have happened in the past unless you find it yourself. Until tomorrow, be safe and keep an open mind.